Today's top stories at NBR. The government commits another $2.5 billion to its ThreeWaters reform program. A bid to stop the imminent receivership sale of winemaker Sacred Hills. Westpac gets into the buy now, pay later sector. And there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR Today, a wrap of the day's top business stories from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz. It's Thursday, July the 15th. I'm Paul Brennan. Thank you so much for joining us. The Ministry of Social Development has admitted it miscategorised a $3.3 million wage subsidy repayment Air New Zealand made last year as non-voluntary. According to documents obtained by the NBR in an Official Information Act request, MSD originally said the airline, the largest claimant under the government's wage subsidy scheme, was requested to repay $3.3 million of the $116.9 million it claimed. However, Air New Zealand Chief People Officer Nikki Dine said the airline agreed with the Ministry of Social Development at the outset that Air New Zealand would do a reconciliation process at the end of each wage subsidy period and would return any money that they'd not been able to pass on to their employees in accordance with the subsidy rules. She went on to say Air New Zealand ran this reconciliation process at the end of each wage subsidy period and presented their findings to MSD, who then accepted the figures as the correct amounts to repay. The government is committing another $2.5 billion to its ThreeWaters reform program as it seeks to win the support of sceptical local authorities. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Local Government Minister Nanaia Mahuta announced the fund at the Local Government New Zealand annual conference in Blenheim today as a signal of how important the government takes the matter. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Grant Robertson was also at the announcement. National Party leader Judith Collins described the funding announcement as a taxpayer bribe to help save the flailing ThreeWaters reform. The government's removal of interest deductibility for property investors will create loopholes where there was none, add unnecessary complexity to the tax system, and fail to have a meaningful impact on housing affordability, a professional accounting body says. And an experienced accountant says he cannot recall another proposed change to tax law which has been met with such unanimous opposition by the profession, let alone others. In March, the government announced a range of changes, including taxing property investors more and spending $3.8 billion to speed up housing developments as part of its long-awaited housing package to bring the housing crisis under control. The majority owner of winemaker Sacred Hills, David Mason, launched a bid in the Auckland High Court today to stop the imminent receivership sale of the business. The well-known Hawke's Bay and Marlborough winemakers group of companies were put into receivership in May, owing creditors more than $98 million, including a $52.4 million debt to Westpac New Zealand. A report released earlier this week by BDO receivers Rhys Logan and Andrew McKay said Mason attributed the failure of the businesses to a material overstatement of inventory in its 2019 accounts, which was the security for its large debt facilities with Westpac. When the business found out about the overstatement, it decided to restructure and separate its Marlborough and Hawke's Bay operations with a view to divest its Hawke's Bay operations to reduce debt. It entered into a conditional sales agreement in 2020, which subsequently fell through. Receivers were progressing the sale of the business to Vinlink, with settlement scheduled for the middle of this month. Westpac is getting into the buy now, pay later sector and will offer New Zealand's first buy everywhere service. The bank will launch the BNPL offering bundle next month via the MasterCard network. Because it uses MasterCard, customers can shop with bundle wherever they like, the first service of its kind in New Zealand, Westpac said. The extraordinary growth of pay later and corresponding decline in traditional credit card use is pushing the mainstream banks to move into the market. A report from price comparison website Finder last month showed 30% of New Zealanders now use BNPL as a form of payment. BNPL was the finance product of choice for 40% of Kiwis under 30, the report found. An academic is calling for a government investigation into community trust investment decisions after finding trusts cost communities $128 million in value over 3 years. Dr. Helen Roberts from the University of Otago's Accountancy and Finance Department found the shortfall after examining the investment performance of 11 of the country's 12 community trusts between April 2017 and March 2020. The full details of those stories and more are at nbr.co.nz right now. Tomorrow at NBR and Hunter's Corner, Tim Hunter says Peter Hudson gets the last laugh with the Bay audio deal. And what next for Zespri in China? I'm Paul Brennan. I look forward to being with you again tomorrow around lunchtime for the morning's NBR trending stories. Then same time, same place, right here from 5:30 tomorrow and through the weekend for another NBR This Week.